Okay, great. So let's move on, please. So, the first pair we'll be talking about today, we'll be talking about the UK oil, which is okay. On UK oil, we already hit stop loss. Remember, during the course of yesterday, we said we are going to move our stop loss to $112, which finally it's stop loss middle of the New York session yesterday. So now we will have to hold on at this point, and if you will remember what I said yesterday, we are in the supply zone at around $114, which has a very strong memory for selling opportunities in the past. So for the sake of clarity, let me go back to our daily time frame, and as you can see the arrow down, you can see that this area has been a very strong selling niche for the bears, and we are right at that same level at this point. So going back to our 1 hour time frame, we want to look on how we want to take advantage of any opportunity lining up for us at this point in time. So looking closely into that structure, following the stop loss hit, so we had about how many pips around here? We had around 400 pips thereabout. Now that we have the structure right now, and we can see that since the later part of yesterday, we've been seeing that price have been rejecting that supply zone, only to be finding a lower high at this point. And we see a lower high structure. So what does this tell us? This gives us a signal that we might be having a bearish momentum building up at this point. And if you remember vividly what I talked about yesterday, I said we should take into consideration this impulse leg, this impulsive move, which might do a retracement probably into that golden zone area we identified between $110 and $108 thereabout. So definitely there are two ways we can actually trade this. The first one is we look for selling opportunities, and that's going to be a counter trend opportunity, as we can see that like I said, we've been having lower highs at this point, giving us an impression that price might probably be going downwards or probably doing a retracement of that impulse leg we identified earlier. So if we are going to take advantage of that counter trend opportunity that is building up before us, what are the things we need to look out for? So the first thing I want us to look out for is we want to look for a breakdown of that area that has been where we put our stop loss, which will probably be our new key level at this point. That's 112, around $112 area. So we want to be looking for a breakdown of that area, which will probably give us a signal, after which we look for confirmation in the form of a retest of structure moving forward. So for the sake of clarity, allow me to give you a visual representation of what I'm looking out for at this point. So we have a rejection of this trend line right now, and if we see a structure that supports a further downtrend continuation, then we can actually do a sell at this point. However, the most convincing way to take advantage of this bearish move is to look for a breakdown of that key level right at 112 area. Then we look for a retest into that structure, which might also share a confluence with that bearish trend line we identified earlier, after which we look for confirmations to sell the spare to the downside. So we will be having our take profit right within that golden zone area that we identified during the course of yesterday's session. And that's going to be our first TP, because we don't know how far price is going to go. There is a possibility that price might come back into this area where we look for structures that support a trend continuation to the upside. And at the same time, there is a possibility that price could break down to touch that bullish trend line that we identified on the daily time frame before we probably see tractions that supports a bullish momentum. So at this point, we want to have our entry point right below that key level. Okay, our key level is always golden color. Let me give it that golden color here. So we want to be having our entry point right below structure. right below that area, which is more comfortable for us after a confirmation is guaranteed. So we will be having a sell position that looks more like this. We have a TP right inside that area, or probably that key level we identified on the daily time frame. And then we have our stop loss right above that bearish trend line here. So this is what our expectations were going to be going into the New York session on the UK oil. Oh, uh, Plenica, you took silver. Okay, we are not talking about on silver right now. Ah, yes. Yes, I'm already giving you a tip. I'm already giving you a tip. Okay, so this is what my expectation is going to be like on the UK oil for now. We aim at around 420 pips. Then, like I said, let me quickly do a recap of what I said. I said I'm looking forward to a breakdown of key level. We're looking for a retest of structure, which might also share a confluence with the bearish trend line. And then we look for structure that supports a trend continuation to the downside. So that's what we're going to be looking out for. And I said we'll have our entry point right below that key level at 112, which should happen after the confirmation is affirmed. So that is our expectation on UK oil. So moving on, we go into US oil. And before we do that, it is pertinent that I made mention of the fact that remember I said something yesterday about this bullish move where we had a target at $120, and I made emphasis on the possibility that price will break out of that supply zone, which is identified with that key rectangle, that blue rectangle you can see on your screen, after which we look for retest of that area. So the same thing still applies on this one too as well. Even though we are looking forward to a bearish momentum here, there is a possibility also that price could break above that trend line, which could probably give us a signal that a bullish momentum is finally coming in. So, and a retest of that will give us with structures that supports a trend continuation to the upside, will give us an opportunity to add to enter the trade to the upside with the target at 120 area and stop loss right below this key level here. So on the contrary to our expectations for selling opportunity, we can be having a bullish momentum right above that trend line where we see $120 as our take profit target and stop loss right below that key level around here. So we have two scenarios we're looking out for on the UK oil, and that is the first one is if we see a breakdown of that key level, a retest into structure confirms a downtrend continuation, which will probably be a retracement of that impulse leg we identified earlier. And I also said down the second scenario, a breakout of structure, which is a breakout of that trend line, a retest into structure with patterns that support a trend continuation to the upside. We could enter at 113.50 area, after which we look at $120 as our take profit target. Now, let's move on. We move on to US oil at this point. And on the US oil, we are, if you are taking that move, remember during the course of yesterday's live session, we identified, despite the fact that we are on a bullish momentum on the US oil, we identified this ascending channel, which is identified with that red line. we identify this ascending channel, and I made mention that if we do have a breakdown of that channel, then we should be looking forward to an opportunity to take advantage of a selling opportunity as a retest of that structure, which finally happened during the course of yesterday's New York session. And we got our trade triggered at that point. I don't know if anyone took advantage of that bearish move on on US oil. So we had that move to the downside. As we can see, we saw price move downwards about how many pips? About how many pips is that? Price moved about 200 pips before we saw this what looks more like a retracement or probably a reversal pattern at this point. So at this point in time, my advice at this point is that we move our stop loss to break even to protect our account or mitigate ourselves against any bullish surprise from this point in the market. So now that we have this kind of scenario playing out on the US oil, what should be our expectations going forward? Now, the first thing I will say is this: move your stop loss to break even for the selling opportunity we took yesterday. And then we want to be looking forward to structures that probably will support a move to either side at this point. Now remember, we had a long-term bullish momentum on the US oil also, and we had a take profit target at $122 on the US oil. So now with this downtrend situation happening, we never can tell if this downtrend situation is going to go further down, or probably we will be seeing a breakout of structure at this point to project a bullish momentum to the upside. So let's see what happens during the New York session on this one. And one thing there is, if our break even level is 8, that is price move into our break even, into our stop loss rather, then we should be having a scenario where this area, because now what I'm seeing at this point is this: after this bullish move happened last week, we saw price came down into $108, and then since then price hasn't come back down to that level. As you can see, price continued to find higher lows, though we didn't find higher highs at this point, but we have higher lows, giving us a scenario where price is not going back to that $108 area. So if that is the case at this point, then definitely we should be having a demand zone right around here to guide our actions going forward. So if you allow me, let us place a demand zone here, and then we label it. We give it a label for the sake of clarity. For the sake of clarity, we have demand zone here. So what we are going to be looking forward to at this point, allow me to delete this channel. It's no longer needed. So we want to be looking out for a breakout of structure in the form of breaking out of this level, then probably a retest into structure with, and we look out for patterns that support a trend continuation to the upside. So where will our neckline going to be at this point? If we look left, we can see that we have structure that we can play around with at $111 area, which falls around here. Is it 100? Okay, I think $112 is most precise. Okay, we have structures to play around at $112. So if we have, let's label this $112 for the sake of clarity. Let's place it at the right hand side. So we have $112 here. So one thing here is we really need to see a very, very emphatic signal that will support a bullish momentum, because definitely if you look at what is happening here on the 1 hour time frame, we can see that we have a bearish trend line. Also we have a mini trend line here also, which cannot be ignored at this point, as a breakout of that level could probably give us a signal that we are going uptrend, and a retest of that level could signal a trend continuation to the downside as well. So because of this, we really need to see strong signals that will affirm that bullish momentum that this demand zone is projecting for us. So what we want to be looking out for is a breakout of that key level at $1112. Then we look for a retest of that key level, or probably a retest of this bearish trend line, after which we look for setups that support a trend continuation to the upside. So if we have that kind of scenario, definitely our take profit target for the bullish momentum still remains at $122 as expected. So this is what the scenario is going to be like if we have price coming above that $112. So we should be having our stop loss right below that key level, and then we have our stop loss right below that key level around here, and this is what we should be looking out for. And at the same time, if we do have a breakout of this trend line here, and we see a retest of that trend line, then structures that supports a trend continuation, probably a reversal pattern, it could be a double bottom structure, a 1 2 3 reversal pattern, or probably an inverse head and shoulder pattern at this point. Then we look for a breakout of structure, a retest, then we can be joining the rally. So we have two areas through which we can take advantage of this buy momentum. So let me give us a niche. So within this area is an area we'll be looking forward for buying opportunity at this point. So allow me to label this. So let's give it buying opportunity zone. So anywhere around here appears to be more suitable to take advantage of that bullish move going forward. So around here appears to be suitable, with our take profit target at remains at $122. So that is that on the US oil. That's my perspective on the US oil. So moving forward, we go on to USD JPY.